for example, a C-section, you can't, take some drops of
there's no
salt and herbal leaves.
Right, there's no balm you can get from the local hippie.
Yeah.
Hi, this is
Scout
and William from Hypermanilating,
the podcast,
a show that follows life and change through the eyes of a father and a daughter. Join us as we find our way together.
I'm the daughter.
And I am the father. For everybody who was confused about that, we were getting a lot of mail, so we wanted to clear that up. All right.
Okay, our first topic of the day is sports. Why are people so obsessed with them? This includes watching and playing. So personally, I really don't mind sitting on the couch watching a bit of hockey, or if there's...
Canadian, eh?
If there's a football game on that my dad wants to watch, I really don't mind watching it.
Oh yeah, big football watcher.
But it is annoying when Madish or my dad start ranting about how Tavares gets too much ice time, why is he still on the power play, stuff like that. But once again, I do not mind watching a bit of hockey. Now, as for the playing point of view, I can understand why people are obsessed with playing sports. They want to get fit, it's like a drug to them.
But the topic's obsessed.
Yeah. So
it's not just like Madish and I watching the odd game.
I was getting there. So,
all right.
When people are obsessed with sports, it's really annoying because they get so invested, which is why I think they're obsessed with them, because they get so invested. It becomes their whole life. That one team becomes everything to them. If that team loses, then the rest of the day, the rest of the night is ruined.
Yeah, there's definitely people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand it either.
No.
I guess it grows out of that thing, though, that you're saying. Like, Paz and I are having a spaz for 10 seconds about, the Leafs, something going on, but then we don't really care. Like, we don't wear gear, we don't paint our faces, we're not sitting on the couch with letters painted onto our chests and jumping up and down or anything.
With rags. Actually, no, you guys get out rags sometimes.
No, we do not.
During the playoffs?
I have never done that.
During the playoffs? Yes, you have.
I have never done that.
Yes, you have.
Oh my God, you and your brother do that once in a while. When you were little, you would do some weirdness.
You taught us how to do it.
To do what?
To do that with the rags.
I have never done that in my life, honestly, and I would freely admit it.
I beg to differ.
Well, you're making things up right now on this. Oh, okay. I see the direction our podcast is going. It's going into a direction of making things up.
No.
I have never cared enough to do that. The only thing I do is I'll do that when I'm in the kitchen and you guys are watching it and they score, and I'll do that weird sidle in. But I just do that because it's fun.
Even I will get sick of sitting there watching the sports. We don't watch it very often at all. If the Leafs are playing, we'll watch it
and even
most of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But even sometimes you and Paws will get a little too invested for me, and I'll clock out. Sometimes. But the obsessed part, I think people get obsessed with playing sports because it becomes a distraction for them. They can play their sport, whether it's road hockey, ice hockey, they can go and play. And it's like it just gets rid of everything and they can just play. So that's why, and also physique, I think that people get obsessed with it because they want to keep up their football body or their hockey body.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but like you see lots of, the vast majority of fans who are obsessed with sports don't have athlete bodies.
I'm talking about people that play.
Is the topic not about obsession with sports?
But it's both, like playing or watching.
I think those are two different things, though. If you're obsessed with playing, that's like I was obsessed with playing hockey, no question.
Yeah.
Like I would play every day if I could, but that was because, I was obsessed with it. I mean, but I loved it. I loved playing. I loved everything about it. The smells, the sounds, every single thing about it. I loved coming to the arena. I loved putting on my gear. It just felt good, right?
Yeah.
And I think comes from a young age, right?
It does.
The sports obsession starts young because you get that thrill. First of all, for your kid running around in the backyard, that's sports.
Yeah.
You're playing hide and go seek. That's sports. You're running around. You're throwing your body around. You're doing physical things, and so it's an offshoot of childhood. And then you get into organized sports, and if you enjoy the sport you're in, it's easy to become obsessed with it because it gives you immediate feedback, right? So it's I think it's addictive in that sense that it becomes a part of who you are. And so in our cultures here in the West, like football, especially in America, hockey in Canada, it's football, soccer, everywhere else in the world, like those things are inbred in you from birth. The team you cheer for, right? You cheer for Argentina, or you cheer for Miami, or whoever you cheer for. You that becomes a huge part of the fabric of the household and everything. And there's big money in it, and it's a distraction too, right? It keeps a lot of people from going off the rails. They can follow their favorite football team. But I'm with you. Like, I don't get taking it to the level where it matters so much. Like, if your team loses, you can't sleep, or, you know, you start arguing with the neighbors because you lost on the spread betting. And I mean,
yeah, that's the other thing. I think people get obsessed with it because of betting. I think that has a big thing to do with a lot of the people.
That's another topic.
Betting, gambling. Well, it's gambling.
Yeah, that's a big problem, I think.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
That's definitely, it can become an addiction. Obsession with sports is a huge part of the psyche of sports-oriented countries, which very many are. I don't think it's necessarily
Mexico.
A bad thing. Yeah, Mexico with football, right? Like, that's huge.
I remember one time we were watching at school the World Cup, because it's a big deal. Like, they stopped class.
Huge.
They stopped our learning to put on the World Series game.
Well, that explains your. You mean the World Cup? Yeah. Well, that explains the obsession thing, right? Like, it's so entrenched that school stops for it. That it's a national thing. So that's part of it, right? It unites everybody. It's something that brings people together. So it's kind of tribal, right? You vote for your team, and your buddies do, and they're voting for that team, and I guess that's an element of the obsession too, like, is just the tribal nature.
I don't know. There was a kid voting for one team that was playing, and then obviously the Chivas, or I don't know if it was Chivas, but Mexico or something.
Right.
And whatever two teams were playing, one kid was voting for one and the other was voting for the other. They got into a big argument about it. Like, it was big. And they didn't turn it off. Like,
right.
The World Cup game kept playing. But, like, on the outside, we wouldn't even have been able to learn because the high school kids were throwing full-on parties at the school.
Yeah. No, it's people are I mean, that's obsessed, like you say. That's the topic, right? Obsession. And it is an obsession. Like, you look at globally, there's people fight. Like, there's killings.
Soccer games are insane for it. Fights happen all the time. It's
crazy, and it really is an obsession. Yeah. But I do think that's a large part. Why is it? Because it's bred into children, right? It's part of the nature of a kid to want to compete and to want to throw themselves about physically, and then it's doubled down on by society, right? You start buying the kit, and you start, knowing who you're supposed to cheer for and who you're not supposed to cheer for. And then if you have an influence in the house or the neighborhood or society with a strong sort of focus on it matters, and then it matters. And so you become obsessed. It matters. For us, we just don't think it matters. We want our team to win, but if they don't win, we're done with the discussion.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. It's a huge part of society, though, isn't it? Sports.
It is.
It's a huge like part. The money involved is outrageous.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that basically covers this topic. I mean.
All right.
Yeah. So the next topic is.
We just solve problems, baby. Solve problems.
Next up, solving world hunger. No, I'm just kidding.
I want us to try peace first. World peace. Okay. Yeah.
Next is medicine or natural. What I mean by that is, which one is better healing wise for the long run. So I think it varies. I think depending on what sickness or problem you have, I think it depends. Like if you have a sore throat, in this household, we just gargle warm salt water.
Yeah.
Which helps it.
Yeah,
immediately
it
almost.
It soothes it anyhow.
It does, yeah.
Well, a lot of medicines that you get over the counter for something like that, like common cold stuff, or they're just Band-Aids, right? They just mask the symptoms. They're not.
And why
healing.
would you buy things to mask the symptoms when you can mask the symptoms at home for 10 pesos with
And
some
often
table
better,
salt
right?
and
Like the
yeah.
table salt thing for the sore throat with some warm water.
It's magical.
It is magical, isn't it? It's brilliant. In that case, natural remedies, they're not really remedies, but natural approaches to dealing with the problem are better. But then there's things where modern medicine has, saved how many lives, right?
Yeah.
And literally lives. Like think about how many children would not even exist if it wasn't for me. You were a C-section. I was a C-section, right? Like, there's a good chance 200 years ago, we don't live. 100 years ago, depending where you are in the world now, maybe still, right? Like, that's a medical intervention.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, for example, a C-section, you can't, take some drops of
there's no
salt and herbal leaves.
Right, there's no
and
balm
then
you
the
can get
baby
from the local hippie.
Yeah. So that's when modern medicine is better. But I think if you have something like a common cold or, you're stuffy or you have a bit of a fever, I think that natural remedies, air quotations, are better for the long and short run.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless you've been sick for like 3 weeks and all you've been doing is gargling salt water and putting cold towels
your infection's
on your
not
forehead.
going away. I mean, then you need some intervention probably. Antibiotics have saved, again, how many lives have been saved? Millions of lives have been saved.
Like, for example, when I had that weird thing on my leg, we're not going to rub lip balm on
I'll
it.
use that as an on the spot. You can tell the story.
No.
Oh yeah, for sure, man.
No.
Yeah. You can.
No, that story's nasty.
Yeah, but you love telling that story. Every time you tell it, it grows. It gets bigger. I can't wait to hear how big it's got now. It's become now.
I'm not saying
all right,
how
we'll
it happened.
save it. You know what? The thing about natural medicine is I think of the Chinese, the Eastern medicine. It's 4,000 years old, 5,000 years old, right? And some of that is really brilliant. Like some of the herbs, and these are things that have been proven over thousands of years to be effective in dealing with various things. Like it might be a liver thing or a heart thing, or there's things that we can learn from natural medicine. It is an approach to some things that's super, super effective. Like they've done a lot of studies now that have shown that a lot of those things work. It's not just voodoo and nonsense. Like you're not just, stirring in frogs' legs with some eye of newt or whatever and trying to come up with something magic. It's actual effective use of herbs and things in nature, which totally makes sense. Because we're all connected.
Yeah.
So, we came from the ocean. It makes sense that all of these things work together somehow.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of doctors recommend natural remedies.
More and more, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because it's easy to go and buy over-the-counter medicines, but for what, $30 for a tin of 10 pills?
And a lot of times they're not effective, right? That is just
There's been times when I've had to
magic.
go to the local pharmacy to get checked up for school or whatever, and it's they give us a prescription and I'll take the medicine and I won't be better, and I haven't gotten any better in a week.
No, it's not doing anything a lot of the time.
For me, when I'm sick, I have a fever or my stomach hurts, or my throat hurts, all I like to do is a cold towel on my forehead with the AC on and gargle salt water.
Yeah.
That's, for me...
Or a fan if you don't have AC.
Yeah. But for me, that's the best.
Or somebody standing over you waving a towel if you don't have a fan.
Or maybe not. But yeah.
No, I'm just trying to
Whatever
be
floats your boat.
comfortable and,
Yeah.
and breathe and try and get better.
Yeah.
There's definitely times when modern medicine is medical intervention is what
Yeah.
saves lives. But I do think that natural methods are dismissed out of hand a lot of times when they shouldn't be, especially for things that you're going to be repeating, like colds, things like that. Like you're going to spend your whole life fighting a cold, so why not learn how to fight the cold yourself? That's kind of the way I look at it.
Or even cough medicine.
Why?
Cough medicine
medicine's
never helps
ridiculous
me.
mostly.
Really, the best medicine that I like is Theraflu. Theraflu always helps. Nighttime Theraflu.
Yeah, it's because it's a drug, man.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
It knocks me out.
Oh, NyQuil used to. People would go tripping on NyQuil.
Are you kidding?
No,
Seriously?
they changed the ingredients. I'm pretty sure. Probably people should look that up, but I'm pretty sure they changed some of the ingredients in NyQuil because people would go tripping on it. It was like fun, get you high. And
That's actually insane.
well, really, even the Theraflu, that's all it is. It's to make you drowsy and go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's it's not really helping your cough or your anything. It's just making you fall asleep.
I mean, I really think it depends.
It's a kid's version of a gummy.
Yeah.
Like, here, man, have some Theraflu
Yeah.
and good night.
If one of my kids ever gets sick, they have like, freaking appendicitis, I'm not going to be like, gargle some salt water,
Well,
you'll
no.
be better in the morning.
Yeah, of course not.
I'm taking them to the hospital to get treated and have
You're
open
not-
surgery.
You're
But
not doing surgery at home with a
Yeah.
butter knife and
Exactly.
and a lighter.
Like, I'm not an almond mom or anything, but like,
Hey, go get the thread. What color thread do you want?
yeah, exactly.
I'll sew it back up.
Exactly.
I just said sew it.
Sue it. I heard that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that was our cue to stop this conversation there.
All right. No, it's an excellent topic though, because I think that it does get ignored. Just the
Yeah.
basic, chicken soup is what fixes things up. So I think for the vast majority of things, we waste so much money and time and energy on trying to get a magical fix.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though. It's easy for us to say that because we've always grown up with access to medicine. I've noticed that when people don't grow up with access to medicine and when they're introduced to access to medicine, they will go to the doctor for almost anything. And the reason being is that they've seen the results of not having access to medicine, and it's devastating. It's fatal.
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, and so to us, it's like, oh, it's a cold, we'll sort it out. Well, that's fine, because if we're not recovering from the cold, we can go to the doctor and get antibiotics, or in worst case scenario, we can go to the hospital. But if you're somebody who's grown up in a situation where a cold turning into something worse can mean the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for you and I to sit here and have this conversation. We have access to both easily.
Exactly.
Right down the road, we have 2 options to pharmacies.
Yeah.
10-minute, 15-minute walks away. Easily have access to medicine. So it's easy for us to sit here and have this conversation. We have table salt. We have the power to boil water. We have a pharmacy. We have these options, but some people don't. So it's easy for us to have this conversation. We can see both sides of this.
And for sure, they've developed effective ways to do these things too, which is how the Eastern medicine, especially the Chinese medicine, can be so effective, right? Because they've had 4,000 or 5,000 years of figuring out, okay, how do we keep this kid from dying that all of a sudden has a throat closing up? How can we keep this kid alive, or this person alive who now all of a sudden has pain in around their liver?
Right.
And so through trial and error, they developed like, okay, this herb, well, it's true though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's over thousands of years, right? This herb works. If we crush this up like this method of breathing helps. So I don't think you can't dismiss that kind of learning. I don't like when people dismiss thousands of years of learning because it doesn't suit their narrative of what medicine should be.
I mean, in the Hunger Games, all of it's fake, obviously. I mean, but there's this one scene where Katniss, the main
There's
character.
really no discussion where you can't work in the Hunger Games, is
No.
there?
She's sawing down a wasp's nest, but they call them tracker jackers.
Oh, yeah,
and they're
I
like
remember that.
hallucinogenics, and if they sting you multiple times, then you're most likely dead.
Yeah, those things are evil.
Yeah. So she gets stung a few times, and then she partners up with Rue, one of the other girls in the Hunger Games, and she chews up a bunch of leaves and puts them on the stings, and it draws out the poison. And obviously tracker jackers aren't real, this plant isn't real, like all of it's fake. But it's cool because it's showing how each district has their ways of healing things. Katniss's district, her mom's a healer, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah, different approaches. Yeah, that's
exactly.
a good point. That's a good point. Different approaches. And so no one use as many approaches as you can manage to find and put together that are useful.
And we're on the topic of like natural remedies or doing things yourself. There was this one guy a long time ago who was in the middle of nowhere, and he had practiced medicine or something. He was a doctor, I think. But there were no other doctors around. It was him and a group of other guys, I think. He might have been at war or something. But anyways, he feels a pain in his right lower abdomen, in the right lower area of his abdomen. He's like, well, I think this is appendicitis. Like, something's seriously wrong here. I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
So he literally bit down on like a block of something, cut himself open, snipped out his appendix, stitched himself back up, and he lived.
Yeah, that's legendary stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
that's,
for sure. Those are the kind of things that guy should be famous.
Yeah.
He should be much more well known than Jake Paul.
Yeah.
All right. I just had to get that in there.
Okay, now we are moving on to our segments. For the first segment, we have Change Happens. Dad, would you care to explain what this segment is?
So yeah, Change Happens is just going to be obviously about change. So I love talking about change and the effect that it has. So just something that could be personal or historical or just something where change created something new or something more or something different.
Or less.
Sorry?
Or something less.
Or so exactly. Yeah. Actually, really good point. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Could
a
be
lot
bad
of times.
change.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, a lot of times it is something less.
Yeah.
So in this case, I was thinking we'd start out with just a personal thing, which is the first time you remember moving.
Okay.
So for me, it was when I was 5, and we moved from a house to another house, and I distinctly remember walking into the new house, walking up the stairs, and seeing my bedroom, and it's one of my earliest memories. Is like really strong memories. Is this idea that wow, this is somewhere else, and I don't recall being scared or anything. It was awesome. It was like a big adventure, and of course my parents were super excited about it, and it was fun. And they, I can just imagine them now as a parent, how they would have been like, oh, this is going to be so amazing, and like really, pumping the tires of the adventure hard. So yeah, that I remember that, and I mean it's so significant, right? Especially for somebody who ended up moving, living in 40, 50 different places. Like the first one, I definitely remember, and that's such a huge change, isn't it? Like you going from an environment. I mean, when I was 1, we moved from an apartment to a house. I don't remember that, and I barely remember that house I was in for a few years afterwards. I have a couple of memories of that, but not very many. But it's almost like that moment where we made that change of location is almost like a phase of life started, like a very specific, okay, this is not how things were. And it was almost like an awakening, and often that's what change is, right? It's just you're awakened to something new.
I guess for me it would be probably moving from the house on the hill to now. I don't remember moving from San Pancho to the house on the hill. I really only remember moving from...
Oh, you mean the one in Cinco? Yeah.
I remember moving from Cinco to here. I remember looking for houses.
So you do remember moving to the up on the hill there?
No.
You don't?
I don't. I just remember all of a sudden being there.
Okay.
Like, I don't remember leaving San Pancho.
Which
like,
is interesting.
none of that.
You were 4?
Yeah, I don't remember any of it. Like,
4,
I have
yeah.
memories in both places.
Yeah, you weren't 5 yet, so that would have been, that's kind of like the age for me when I was 5, was sort of a distinct, okay, I'm starting to form memories.
Yeah, like, I have very specific memories of being in San Pancho. I have very specific memories of being in Cinco, but the first time I remember moving was to here.
Yeah.
Like, this was the first time I remember actually remembering a Christmas where we had to unpack, and
Right.
like the first time putting together a room. Like, this was the first place. And then obviously after that, I remember moving with Mom to a house, and now to the house she's in now. I remember all of that. But, like, I don't remember moving from San Pancho to Cinco at all. I remember the first move I remember is Cinco to here, home. So.
Yeah, and that's significant change.
It is, yeah.
Because up on the hill was kind of transitory too, right? Like, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't. It was not intentionally so, but it definitely ended up being more of a way station. Whereas moving here definitely had a feeling of permanence to it, like a feeling of, okay, this is where we're gonna be for a while, anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, like, if I went to Cinco, I could point out our home, and I could be able to walk around that apartment and be like, this is where Paws and I slept. You know, this was where we sat and ate dinner every night. This is where our Christmas tree went. Like, I can point all those things out, but I just don't remember.
What do you think of that as change? Like, how did that resonate with you as change, even though you were little? Like, how do you think, what's the effect of that?
Well, I remember it being like, all I remember is this checking in as my first childhood home. Actually, that's not true. San Pancho was. But I remember moving in here and feeling like, okay, we're going to be here for a long time. Like,
yeah.
I remember that.
So basically, it's the same as the experience I had. Like, you had a sort of a place that you were before, but then you ended up transitioning. There's a change into more like more awareness.
Yeah.
I wonder if the incident is triggering, like, the change is moving is such a big thing, right? So does that trigger in us as children at that age a greater awareness? Like, something just clicks and tweaks in you where you go from just sort of absorbing your existence to being a real part of it, you know?
I think so, because it was the first move I actually remember being part of, like, helping out with.
Right.
I remember packing boxes in Cinco. I remember moving boxes in here. Like, I remember putting the boxed up Christmas tree and coloring on it and then putting it up there.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So that's like,
that's like my first memory of moving.
All right. I'm always up to talk about something like that, some change.
Yeah.
It's such a big part of life. It's just changes, new things, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Like you say, sometimes more, sometimes less. Yep. All right, where are we going now?
Okay, so our last segment is weirdness. So I'm in charge of this segment for today, and it's just basically a weird story or something weird that happened to you or a weird creature. I made you think that I was going to talk about blobfish, but I already have something that I'm going to talk about. So back in like the, I don't know, Western days, I think it was, there was this man.
So are you suggesting that you were trying to fake me out?
Yep. There was this man. I think he was working with dynamite by rocks, and he had to blow something up. So he was sitting there and he was setting out the dynamite, and he sets off the dynamite. And without knowing that there was like a spear in the ground, he sets off the dynamite, and the spear shoots up through his chin and into his skull, like his brain.
Oh, I've seen pictures of this dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
yeah, this
everyone
qualifies.
everyone around him, like, what the flip? This guy just got a spear shot through his head. So he's like, everyone's like, okay, what are we going to do? So I think this guy was still conscious. Like, he got up and was like, take me to the hospital. So they walk him to the town clinic or whatever, and he's laying on the bed, and they're like, yeah, we'll try and save him, but it's lucky that he's even breathing. Like, you guys are lucky he can even still think. So, he wakes up. I don't know if it was a few days later or whatever. He's conscious and up and running. I'm sure he lost a few brain cells along the way. But, yeah,
I just looked him up. Phineas P. Gage.
Yeah.
There's an awesome picture on Wiki with him holding the spear, and his left eye is shut. I guess it went through the left side.
Yeah, it did. It went through here,
and
then up his left eye, and then up
I shouldn't be
right
laughing,
corner.
I guess.
It's awesome.
It's unbelievable.
Like, it's truly incredible. Yeah, there's photos of the... Oh, no, I guess it went through here.
They did a cartoon. It's a panel from Bring Me the Head of Phineas Gage.
What?
He lived for a long time, I think, didn't he?
They have his skull and everything. Oh, no,
yeah, this qualifies as weirdness for sure.
Yeah, no, he...
Oh, no, he didn't live that much longer.
Oh, shocker.
He managed to make it 36, but this is in 1860.
Yeah,
died.
no, 36 was awesome. Like,
wow, especially it was 1848. So he managed to go another 12 years. Yeah, that's outrageous, man. That's crazy when you think about it. Like how powerfully efficient the human brain is. Like that it could do enough to work around that damage, like make new connections and everything. Because by all rights, that dude should not have been able to function on any level for 12 more years.
No. I mean, it ties into our medicine conversation, because it's like now, because we're so used to modern medicine, we wouldn't have been able to do what he did. Keep himself surviving and keep himself alive through that trauma, the head trauma. We would need modern medicine. Whereas he, because they didn't have such advanced medicine, was kind of forced to keep himself alive for those few gibbets of time.
Gibbets?
Yeah.
Gibbets.
Before he...
I'm almost positive, and I've never heard gibbets before.
Yep.
Well, we're going to keep it.
Perfect.
Gibbets.
But yeah, he kept himself alive through this period of time.
What about luck, too? What a role luck plays in life. Like, you can trip on the stairs and that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
And here's this guy gets a stake driven right through his chin and his face and his head.
No, not chin. This side here. Through his cheek.
Oh, through his cheek.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, imagine the power that explosion had to send a spear that was in the ground up his cheek. Like, imagine how unlucky that is, but lucky at the same time.
I wonder if he liked telling the story.
I would.
Or did he get sick of it with his wonky eye and everything? Well, yeah, he kept functioning.
True.
Yeah, like this. I mean, I wonder if he liked telling the story or if he got sick of it. Oh, you imagine today he'd just make his living out of it. He'd be on tour, social media.
He'd be nasty rich.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, he'd be ripping off stories.
But yeah, imagine how unlucky that is, but lucky at the same time. To be there, wrong time, wrong place, to have a spear driven through your head.
Totally, lucky and unlucky.
But... Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's really nothing else to say about it. Like, it's just...
No, that covers it. All right, that was definitely weird.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, no, you got that one down.
Yep.
All right, Irish, does that bring us to a conclusion?
It does.
Today?
It does. It sure does.
Well, that's a good way to end on the old guy who got spiked through the head.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
you know you've got a good podcast when it ends on a spike through the head.
Yeah, you do.
That's like that guy who used to bug me when I had the cafe, and I told him that he was like a spike through the forehead of conversation. All right, Irish, I love you very much.
I love you too. Thank you.
Until we meet again in
Until we meet.
this situation,
Yes'm.
sitting across from each other yakking.
There you have it.
Perfect.
Perfect. I love you, Dad.
I love you.